Okay, so what I'd like to say is thank you everybody for waiting patiently in the room, and I've just invited you all in, so hopefully you can all at least hear me. And so this session is the third session on the IMS stream for the virtual conference 2023. So it's session code 5C, and it is going to be on using the all-new IMS Native DDL utility, and I hear there's been some great reports from feedback from other users of it, so it's obviously a compliment to IBM on that one. And this session we are very grateful to have the services of Deepak Kohli, who is legendary really in the industry. He's been in IBM for over 20 years. He's been the IMS product manager for 13 years, and obviously is a senior software engineer for 8 years prior to that. So, you know, we've got the really an excellent, knowledgeable, and you know, I'd say golden IBM person to do this session. So without further ado, before I hand him over, just saying that everybody, he loves audience participation. So what I'll do is I'll unmute, I'll get everybody to that if you want to ask a question, then you will have to unmute yourself, but I'm going to put you all on what's called you need to unmute yourselves. At the moment I've got that disabled. I'm just going to disable that now, so that if you want to ask a question, then please put yourself take yourself off mute and ask that question, because Deepak will be happy to field any questions in the session. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Deepak.
Dominic, thank you. Thank you very much. So my name is Deepak Kohli. I think some of you probably already know me. As Dominic mentioned, he used the word legendary, but I think he meant to say I'm old. At least that's what it means. Anyway, yes, I've been around for a long time. I'm an IMS product manager at the IBM Silicon Valley lab, and this is session 5C. So please, yes, stop me at any time. This is I think for any client that's using IMS, this is a very, very important topic. So let me first tell you why this is important, why we at the lab have embarked on this journey, and then I'll go through the agenda. So when IMS 15 was introduced, which is back in 2017, IBM, we made the statement of direction, and I've cut and pasted that statement of direction right here on this page. In fact, I've highlighted the important thing in blue here. It says IBM intends to require IMS management of ACBs in the future. The IMS catalog must be set up to support ACB management, right? So at some point in the future, we intend to require that all IMS clients implement IMS management of ACBs. And then it says here in blue, again, this is cut and paste from the statement of direction. At a later date, after the requirement of IMS management, IMS managed ACBs is in place, IBM also intends to remove the generation processes for PSB Lib, BBD Lib, and ACB Lib. And at that time, the IMS catalog, SQL, and DDL become the interface to IMS database management. So, you know, what they're saying is at some point we will require that all of our IMS customers implement IMS managed ACBs. And then when the dust is settled, we'll also come out with a requirement to implement DDL, which means that you will no longer be doing PSP gens and DVD gens and ACB gens, and those libraries will no longer be required by IMS. You can go sell them to the Russians if you want, right? And to do the equivalent of that, you're going to have to submit DDL. So very, very important stuff. Every IMS client will be impacted by this. And so the net or the final destination for us is DDL. Why? Because DDL is, sort of an industry standard thing, especially in relational database management. And everybody and their mother knows DDL. My grandmother from India could probably do DDL, right? So this is a very, very important topic. So here's what I'm going to do. Here's my agenda for this session. And as Dominic mentioned, please stop me at any time, ask me any kinds of questions, and I'll be happy to entertain them. Here's my agenda. First thing I want to talk about is the infrastructure you need to have in place to use DDL with IMS. And that infrastructure is called IMS Managed ACBs, right? So IMS Managed ACBs is the infrastructure we need to be able to run DDL. Then I'll talk about DDL in IMS, what the syntax looks like. I'll talk about the different ways to submit DDL. And then in submitting DDL, I'll go through each one of the ways. You can submit DDL from IMS Explorer for development, E for D. And I've included a section here for your reference. It's been covered before. Those of you who have been playing with IMS Explorer probably know how to do this, but I've left it there for reference, for completeness sake. There's a SQL batch utility, which allows you to submit SQL, and DDL is part of SQL. So I've got that section in there for reference. And then the very new way of submitting DDL that almost everybody loves is this zDDL utility, and that's the focus in this particular section, and I'll talk about that. And then one of the questions we often get asked is, I've got DVDs and PSBs in IMS. We've had them for decades. How can I convert those to right now? The DVDs and PSBs are in assembler macros. How do I convert those to DDL? So I'll talk about that for a little bit. And then what's the next thing that we're working on regarding zDDL at the lab? I'll mention that too. I think it's a very exciting thing, and a lot of people know about it. So even though we haven't yet come out with the next thing for zDDL, I'll mention that. Yep. So that's my agenda. I'm going to get started. Please stop me if you've got any questions. Yeah. So what's the infrastructure that you need to have in place to start using DDL for database management in IMS? That infrastructure is called IMS Managed ACBs. So over to on this page on the right-hand side, the lower right-hand side, in blue, is the infrastructure that you need to have in place to use DDL with IMS. The IMS does not use ACB lives. You'll see it's got data sets called DI1001, DI1002. This is the IMS directory data sets. IMS gives you 2 directory data sets to get started with, and the directory data sets is where we house ACBs, if you will. So what used to exist in ACB libraries will now reside in directory data sets, which are PDSEs, if you will. We also have a staging directory data set, very much like a staging ACB library, if you will. So the ACB blocks are placed, that agenda placed in the staging directory data set. And then to bring them online, we have a type 2 import command that you can use to import them or bring them into the directory data set. And that's how you do online change, if you will, in an IMS managed ACBs environment. Now, if the directory data sets fill up, you don't have to worry about that. IMS will automatically allocate a 3rd directory data set. If that fills up, IMS will automatically allocate a 4th directory data set, and so on. And this is why they call it IMS managed. That's the word, IMS managed ACBs. So you don't have to worry about the directory data sets filling up. We'll automatically allocate another one. And since there can be more than one directory data set, we have a data set called BSDS, bootstrap data set, that keeps track of these directory data sets. In DB2, you have a BSDS also. The BSDS in DB2 keeps tracks of DB2 logs. Here, the BSDS keeps track of IMS directory data sets. And then you also have a catalog, an IMS catalog that contains sort of the same information that you have in the directory data set, only it's in a different format, right? And this information is metadata about your databases and your PSBs, and that's in the catalog data set, and that's used for DDL, and it's also used if you're going to write Java programs that access IMS databases. So that's sort of the infrastructure, the IMS managed ACBs, if you will. We also introduced with IMS managed ACBs another ACB gen utility. It's called DFS3 UACB. So when you do DVD gen into DVD live and a PSB gen into PSB live, then you can use this DFS3 UACB. What it does the ACB gen, puts the ACB blocks in the ACB library, and then takes those ACB blocks and then puts them in a format that the catalog recognizes and puts it into the catalog. So the DFS3 UACB keeps the ACB library and the catalog in sync, if you will, right? And then a new utility called ZDDL that we introduced last year with IMS 15.3. This is another way that you can gen your ACB blocks, if you will. You submit DDL using this utility, and that's what I'm going to be talking about in this session. And this utility will take your DDL and then parse it and then do the internal block building, if you will, and create an ACB block and put that ACB block in the staging directory data set. And it'll also go ahead and update the catalog with the metadata. And then once you have the ACBs in the staging directory data set, you can then import them using the type2 import command. There are other ways to submit DDL prior to the ZDDL utility, then they are still around, and we don't have any plans of getting rid of them, by the way. So the three different ways that you can submit DDL is through IMS Explorer for development, or there's a utility called a SQL batch utility, or you can write a Java program, right? And using our IMS universal drivers, you can submit SQL or DDL, if you will. But when you submit DDL from IMS Explorer or SQL batch utility or a Java program, it comes in through IMS Connect, through ODBM into IMS, and then the DDL, gets processed and it's placed in the staging directory data set, and the catalog gets correspondingly updated, and then you import that DDL or those ACB blocks using the import command, right? So this is the infrastructure of the IMS managed ACBs environment, which is required to use DDL with IMS, okay? Okay, on to the next page. Let me talk about the DDL syntax a little bit, and then we'll get into ZDDL. So DDL can be used to create, modify, and delete IMS databases and application program resources. By that we mean PSBs. You don't have to go through, this PSB gen, DBD gen, ACB gen, this proprietary IMS gen process. And as I mentioned on the previous page, DDL can be submitted from a Java client using the IMS universal drivers, or DDL can be submitted using the SQL batch utility or IMS Explorer for development. And now we have a new way of submitting DDL, starting with IMS 15.3, and that's called the ZDDL utility. DDL uses three verbs, if you will, or three statements. There's the create statement, the alter statement, and the drop statement, right? Create, if you're creating something new; alter, if you're changing something that already exists; and drop is to delete something, right? And at the bottom, again, just a reminder, IMS managed ACBs is required to use DDL. Yeah. And by the way, I don't know if somebody's going to ask that, but if you are, let me just tell you, this statement of direction that I went through earlier, we made that in 2017. We now have 3 or 4 clients that have implemented IMS managed ACBs in all of their environments, including production. In fact, we've got a client that's been in production for over 3 years with no issues. So these clients that have already implemented IMS managed ACBs are pretty soon or going to be looking to go to DDL also. So there's a lot of clients that are moving along with this. Okay. So just a couple of things. I like this page, and I've always kept it in most of my presentations. It sort of correlates, the IMS resource naming convention with the naming convention in DDL. So databases, we call them, databases are defined using DBD, assembler macro statements. In DDL, when you create a database, you don't say DBD, you just say database. So that's sort of the correlation. Segments in a database, they're coded using the segm macro. In DDL, segments and all the occurrences of a segment, really, it's a table, if you will, right? So when you create segments in DDL, you don't say create segment, you say create table. Similarly, fields are called columns in DDL. The data set or the area statement, they're called table spaces. And then PSBs are coded with the PSB gen macro. In DDL, we call them program views, right? Because that's what they are. It's views of what the program is using for those databases. The PCBs within a PSB, we call them schemas. And the sensitive segments within the PCB, they're coded using senseg macros. In DDL, we call them senseg views, right? So that's a nice little chart that sort of correlates what the resource is called in IMS and what we'll be calling it in DDL. This is sort of a high-level look at the create DBD syntax, if you will. So for when you're creating a database, you say create database, you give it a name, you specify the access and other database options. The data set statement, you won't say create data set, you say create table space, and you specify the data set options in there. And then for each segment of that database, you have a create table statement, right? So this is how you would define DVDs in DDL in IMS, right? Here's a nice picture. By the way, there's an IMS client called FITS, and Robert Recknagel is often a speaker about IMS, and this chart was created by him, so I give him credit. On the left-hand side, you see a sample database. It's a HIDAM OSAM database. So at the top on the left-hand side is the HIDAM database, and at the bottom is the index database. And this is an example of a sample database with one segment, if you will, and the typical macros that are coded in the DBD for both the database itself and the index. On the right-hand side, and this is a very nice way for somebody who's first learning to go from DBDs to DDL, right? On the right-hand side is the DDL statements that you need to code up. So you'll see here it says create database, and the name of the database is IVPDB1, access HIDAM OSAM, right? This is color coordinated, by the way, so you'll see in purple the data set statement in the DBD, and in DDL would say create table space. The name of the data, or the DD name for this data set, is DFS IVD1 in, the name of the database is IVPDB1, and then the the block size is 2048. The segment name is A11111. In DDL, we'd say create table A11111, and then open parentheses, and then inside of that, we've got the column definitions. And so there's the first column definition, A11111, character 10 starts in position 1 for type character, and it's a primary key, and so on. So this is a very nice way to see how DVDs correspond, or the corresponding coding is for DVDs in DDL. And then when you're submitting DDL, you can say commit to DDL, or you may not, and I'll get into that later on, right? So this is a sample of a DVD using DDL, if you will, okay? If you want to modify existing databases, then you'd use the alter statement. You can alter databases, you can alter table spaces, you can alter tables, and this is a high-level syntax, if you will. On the next page here is an alter table statement. So table is a segment, keep in mind, right? So I'm altering a segment. The name of that segment is stock statistics, and it's in database called DI21 part. And we're adding a field, all right? Adding a column. This is the name of the column, unit price, decimal 9,3, it's for 9 bytes, starts in position 21, and so on. So this would be an alter statement to modify that segment. And then, of course, when you're submitting this DDL, you'd have a commit DDL statement that says, yes, go ahead and commit this. Yeah.
And Deepak,
So,
is it
yeah,
just a quick question? When you got all the database types, we're talking about we can do FastPath here, and we can do OSAM as well. You know, it's not just restricted to the VSAM types, or
exactly.
or FastPath as well. Yeah.
That's right. So this applies to all databases, and it's not just submitted, not just to VSAM, but also to OSAM. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then if you want to delete a database, you just say drop database, and that's how it gets deleted, right? Oops, gone too far. Go back. Creating PSBs. Here is sort of the high-level syntax. You say create program views, right? And then the PCBs are called schemas. And so you'll have a create schema in there, and there are two types of PCBs. There's the TP PCBs and database PCBs. So you have schema TP and schema DB. And then for your sensitive segments, you'll say create senseg views, right? If you have GSAM in there, you'll say create schema GSAM for your GSAM PCBs, right? So this is the high-level syntax for PSBs, if you will, when you're creating them. On the next page, again, we've got that very nice chart that was put together by Robert Recknagel, and I continue to use it. On the left-hand side is actually two PCBs. At the top is a PSB. The name of that PSB is DFS IVP1. It's got a TP PCB and a database PCB in it. And at the bottom, I've got another PSB, DFS SAM02, and it's only got one database PCB in it, no TP PCBs, right? So I've got two PSBs on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side is the same PSB coded using DDL. So let me take a look at the first one. We say create program view. The name of the PSB is DFS IVP1, right? And this name, by the way, was specified in the PSB gen statement. And then this PSB is made up of two PCBs. So we have a create schema TP, and the first PCB is a TP PCB. It's an IO PCB, if you will. It's modifiable, so we call it, say, create schema TP PCB number 1, modify yes, express yes. And then after that, we've got a database PCB in there. So we say create schema DB PCB01 using, and the name of the database that this PCB is for is IVP-DB1, and then open parentheses, and then we've got the senseg information. We say create senseg view, the name of the segment or the table, and then the proc opt, right? And the language is assembler. So that is my equivalent coding of that PSB in DDL. And then similarly at the bottom is the other PSB, and then you say commit DDL. So just showing you how to code PSBs in DDL, right? And if you're going to drop PSBs, you just say drop program view in the name of the PSB. Notice, by the way, I've got a create for PSBs. I've got a drop. There's no alter. We don't have an alter PSB. If you want to alter a PSB within the same commit scope, you can drop it and then simply do another create, and then drop and immediately followed by create within the same commit scope. Under the covers, we process that as an alter, right? Okay. So let's talk about, so I've given you sort of a high-level look at what the syntax looked like for coding DDL in IMS. Let's talk about submitting DDL in IMS. As I mentioned, there have been three ways. One is you can write a Java program to submit DDL. The other is IMS Explorer for development. You can use that to submit DDL, or you can write a SQL batch utility. In all three of these ways, when you submit the DDL, it goes, through TCP/IP into IMS Connect. From IMS Connect, it goes into ODBM, and then from ODBM into IMS, right? We've had those three ways available since version 14. It's still around, and we don't have any plans of getting rid of that. What's different is in 15.3, we introduced this IMS Native zOS DDL utility, or what we call the ZDDL utility, and it can run as a BMP job. So you can run while IMS is up, or run it as a BMP job. You submit your DDL, IMS takes it, processes it, and then updates the catalog in the directory with that information. So you don't have that code path of going through IMS Connect and going through ODBM. It's a very IMS native way of submitting DDL, hence the name IMS Native zOS DDL utility, or ZDDL, right? So that's what I'm going to be talking about. And then what I'll also mention, the next thing that we are currently working on, is being able to run that same utility in a DLI batch mode. So IMS and ODBM and IMS Connect, all three of those could be down, right? They could be down there, and you will still be able to do or submit DDL by running this ZDDL utility in DLI batch mode. And we think that's a very, very powerful capability. Even in DB2, by the way, if DB2 is down, you can't submit DDL. But in IMS, when IMS is down, you'll be able to submit DDL by running ZDDL in DLI batch mode. We're currently working on it. I believe this week we are giving a beta version of this DLI batch utility to our sponsor users. They'll be testing and playing with this stuff starting this week. So pretty exciting stuff. So let me go through these ways of submitting DDL in a little bit more detail, and then we'll get to ZDDL. So IMS Explorer for development. I've got a couple of charts in here. This is there for your reference. Those of you who've been playing with E4D probably have done this, but here it is, nevertheless, for completeness sake, right? You bring up IMS Explorer for development, you create a workspace, if you will, and then what you see on the left-hand side is a screenshot of creating a connection to the IMS catalog, right? You create a connection to the IMS catalog. You provide the IMS Connect IP address, your IMS Connect ODBA port number, your RACF user ID and password, and the catalog update PSB DFSCP001. You click finish, and you establish a connection. Right. Then what you do is you create what's called a new data development project, right? And once that data development project is created, you then create under that data development project. You create a new SQL script. The SQL script opens up on the right-hand side, and then you enter your DDL statements there. So you see on the left-hand side here is a screenshot where we're creating a program view called Dynamic PSB or DYNAM PSB. And then once you've coded up your DDL statements, you would save it. And then if you wanted to run it, you can just do a right click and choose Run SQL, and your DDL gets submitted. It goes through IMS Connect, goes through ODBM into IMS, and it gets processed. And then the SQL results view will open up below the SQL script, and you'll see your SQL on the right-hand side, and it'll say it has successfully completed. If there are any error messages usually contain SQL codes or AIB return codes and reason codes, and DLI status codes also. So this is, again, just for completeness sake, I left that in there. This is a way to submit DDL through IMS Explorer for development, right? There's also the SQL batch utility. Again, I've left this there for reference. The SQL batch utility, you can submit DDL. Again, it goes through IMS Connect and ODBM. And the input to the SQL batch utility, you can have SQL in DD statements, or a data set, or USS, right? Those are three ways that you can submit DDL. Here's a sample JCL, if you will, right? And notice we start off with the zOS. Let me go back here. JZOS batch launcher is what gets started, and it then invokes the SQL batch utility, right? And so in this JCL on the exec statement, we've got the JZOS batch launcher. It then starts up we pass a parameter to it, in this case P1, and P1 is set for that SQL batch utility. The input to this SQL batch utility is coming in through this IMS SQL DD statement, and this data set has my SQL statements that I want to execute. And then the standard environment DD statement has your Java parameters, if you will, right? So this is your sample JCL for submitting SQL batch utility. The input statements supported by the SQL batch utility include all the SQL statements and DDL statements that are supported by universal JDBC drivers. But in addition to all those, you would have a connect statement to establish a connection, and then a commit to commit the work or rollback, and then a disconnect to disconnect from your current connection. So these are 4 additional statements that you can use in your input to the SQL batch utility. And then on the next page is a sample input to the SQL batch utility, right? So here you'll see we're connecting using the JDBC URL, and the catalog update PSB is DFS CP001. So we're connecting to the catalog. And then I've got my SQL statement. I've got a create database statement with a create table, with a create table space, and then I say commit, and then I disconnect, right? So that's my sample input to my SQL batch utility, okay? Now, let's talk about the ZDDL utility. That's what this utility is for. And I know I'm an IBMer, and this is an IBM utility, and everybody likes to praise their own work, but I can honestly tell you that we've gotten really positive feedback from our clients about this utility. We've got some clients that even said, and we've been using that, they've said this is one of the best things they've seen come out from the IMS lab, the ZDDL utility. And you'll see, it's a very, very simple way of submitting DDL in IMS. So let me go through this. How do you run this utility? You submit JCL, very straightforward JCL. You'll see on the exec statement, the program that we are executing is DFS3 ID00, right? IMS DDL utility, DFS3 ID00. That's the name of the program that we're executing. You're running it as a BMP job. The name of the program is DFS3 ID00. And the catalog update PSB name is DFS CP001, right? That's it. That's what the exec statement is. Pretty straightforward, right? It's being run as a BMP. The name of the module is DFS3 ID00. And here's a PSB, because in IMS, anytime you run a program, you need a PSB. And the PSB is the catalog update PSB, right? In this JCL, the DDL statements are in line in the IMS SQL DD card. So here's my IMS SQL DD card. I'm saying drop program view sample PSB, and then I say commit DDL. Boom, that's it. I submit this, and this PSB or program view gets dropped, and we're committing this. It's that simple. It's not very complicated, right? On the next page is, again, the same JCL, only the SQL statements are not in line. They're in a data set. So I'm a SQL DD card is there, and here's my data set name, and then it's concatenated with another data set name. And so you can do concatenation if you like, and you can submit DDL. Very, very simple, very, very straightforward. By the way, I planned on doing a demo for you all, but when I started this morning and I started to bring up my IMS system, my EC machine wasn't coming up. So I apologize for that, but nevertheless, you can see it's a pretty straightforward way of doing this. Now, when we started development on ZDDL, this is how we envisioned it. We thought, well, that's it. It's pretty simple. That's all we need to do. But in working with our sponsor users, they came back and they started asking for various options or control options, if you will. And when we listened to our clients, we said, that's a great idea. Let's implement that. So let me show you some of the great ideas that clients came up with, that we incorporated them into this utility. One of the things that you might have seen from the first section of this presentation, where I talked about DDL syntax, is that DDL syntax can be huge, right? I mean, DVDs can be huge, right? PSBs can be huge. So these DDLs can be huge. So when you run this DDL utility, the output of the DDL utility, the ZDDL utility, can be huge if we're going to print out all of the DDL statements. And so some of our clients came back and said, well, what if I don't want to look at all the DDL statements? Is there a way to not show that? So on the ZDDL utility control statements, you can specify verbose. Verbose says, that the utility will print the full text of the DDL statements in the job log, right? If you don't specify verbose, we'll only print for each DDL statement, we'll only print whatever can fit on the first 80 characters of the line, right? Yes, if a DDL statement is in error, then we will print the full text of the failing DDL statement, right? So verbose is an option. So by default, the utility will not print all of the DDL statements. For each DDL statement, will only print what fits on one line in 80 characters. But if you want to see the whole thing, you can code the keyword verbose in your control statement. Also, one of the things that our clients came back with was, why do I have to code commit DDL at the end, right? Can't you just automatically commit it? So if you want that, you can code the auto commit keyword, and that tells that the utility will perform auto commit if no commit DDL statement is provided by the user. If the user does not specify auto commit and they don't have a commit DDL statement, then the utility will not commit the DDLs, and you'll just get an automatic rollback of the DDL. So how do you specify these control statements? There's a sysin ID DD statement, sysin ID DD statement. On there, you can code verbose and or auto commit, and they'll take into effect. right? A very nice feature. Here's another one that one of the clients came back with. They said, here's the deal. I want to submit my DDL, but I don't want to do it today. I'll probably do it on the weekend. But I'd like to be able to run this utility and make sure that everything is going to be fine. So can you give me an option where I can run this utility with my DDL statements? You can do all kinds of checking, make sure everything works fine. But when it comes to committing it, don't commit it, just stop. And then on Sunday, I'll actually run it, and then we'll run the whole thing, and then you can commit it. So we said, oh, okay, so you're looking to do kind of like a simulation of a full run and make sure that everything will run fine. And they said, yes. So that we came up with this option called the simulate option. So if you specify simulate, the utility will simulate, running those DDL statements, which means our parser will parse through the DDL statements, make sure they're good, right? If they're not, we'll give you some error messages. We'll do the validations that we do at commit time, make sure they're good. We'll build the blocks, the ACB blocks, make sure they're good, right? If you're doing a drop, we'll do DDL cross-reference validation. We'll do all of that, but we won't commit. We'll, we'll go through the whole thing, and then we'll just do an auto rollback, and then we'll stop, right? So that's what the simulate option is. It's like, I'm giving you my DDL, do everything but commit. And if there's any errors, let me know. And if there's no errors, then yeah, I've got peace of mind. And then whenever I want to actually run it, I'll run it without the simulate option. So that's what that simulate option is. And again, on the SysIn ID DD statement, you would just say simulate, and that's what it does, right? We also provided with this ZDDL utility the ability to create DOP PSBs. So you can say dynamic program view equals, and you can say create yes or create no. Dynamic program view simply says, okay, whatever create program views I've got, create them as DOP PSBs. Create yes, what's the difference in create yes and create no? Create yes says, yeah, go ahead and create these PSBs as DOP PSBs, but in the PSB directory in my IMS online system, create an entry for this PSB and turn the DOP flag on. If you say create no, we'll create this PSB as a DOP PSB, but in the online system, in the PSB directory, we just won't create an entry. And you might say, well, what's the point of that? Well, we've had some clients that said, I'd like to create a DOP PSB that I'm only going to be using in a batch environment, not in the online environment. So for those clients that say create no. For clients that are going to use this DOP PSB in an online environment, they'd say dynamic program view equals create yes, right? The default, by the way, is create no, right? So this is another way of creating dynamic PSBs, if you will. Why did we provide this in ZDDL to create dynamic PSBs? Because the current dynamic PSB creation process was sort of kludgy, if you will, and especially vendors came to us and said, we'd like a nice, easy way to create dynamic PSBs. So vendors, people like FileAid or File Manager that make use of dynamic PSBs can now use ZDDL, and with this dynamic program view control option, they can create dynamic PSBs, if you will. Right? And again, on the SysIn ID DD statement, you just say dynamic program view equals open parentheses create yes close parentheses. And that's it. That's how you create dynamic PSBs. So that's it. It's very simple, very straightforward how to run this ZDDL utility to submit DDL. And just for completeness sake, I put this in there. We often get asked this question. I've got existing DVDs and PSBs. How do I convert them to DDL? Can I do that? And the answer is yes. One way to do that is You can use your IMS Explorer for development, right? You can import your DVDs and PSBs. And when you import your DVDs and PSBs, you can go into the Project Explorer, and once you've imported them, the DVDs and the DDLs are automatically created for you. And here you'll see in my Project Explorer, I've got the files ending with .ddl. So you can now see and open the DVD and PSB source folders, and you can see the DDL. So it's very, very simple with E4D. You can take your existing PSBs and DVDs and then see what the DDL looks like, right? Very powerful capability, right? Some of these DVDs and PSBs were coded up in the 70s and 80s, and the people that coded them up are long gone. They're probably dead, but you can now just at the touch of a button create the DDL system. Okay. There's also the DDL generation batch utility, and that utility can generate the DDL for you. It can generate the DDL from DVD and PSB source, and that's what I'm showing here in this JCL here. Or you can have the DDL generation batch utility generate the DDL from the IMS catalog, right? So that's another way that you can generate a DDL for your existing DVDs and PSBs. Okay. Looking ahead, I think I already mentioned this, but I'll mention it again. There are a couple of things we're doing in the DDL landscape. We're currently working on the ZDDL utility to be able to run this as a DLI batch job. And this week we'll be providing a beta code to our sponsor users. So if this is something you're interested in and would like to be a sponsor user to test this and play with this, let us know. The other thing is vendor data support in DDL. Let me just give you an example. If you are a BMC tools user, and BMC has a tool called PDF, Partition Database Facility, then you know that you've got to make some changes to your DVD in order to use their PDF tool. Well, you can make those changes to DVD. What about in DDL? So things like that, vendor data support, where you want to customize today you're customizing your DVD to work with a tool or a homegrown feature, and then you'll be able to do that in DDL. So that's another area that our DDL team is currently working on, is to provide vendor data support in DDL. Okay. So that's what I had put together. Any questions, any thoughts, any comments?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Deepak. I've got another question just related to something earlier about when you said you can't necessarily amend a PSB in the DDL statement, that you have to do a within the commit process, you do either is it a delete or a drop, and then you'd have to add it in again. So is there a bit of an overhead in doing that, or is that the point that because it's between a commit point, it doesn't really matter, or is there a big overhead for that?
Yeah, great question. And so why do we do this? Why did we not provide an alter for the PSB? Quite frankly, we could have provided an alter for a PSB. It was a development effort, and we didn't. But we spoke with our sponsor users and said, would you be okay if you just did a drop for that PSB or program view, and then followed by a create? And they said, yeah. Now, is there a bit of an overhead? Actually, no. It actually works better. So when you do a drop and a create under the covers, we automatically take that as an alter, and it's actually faster than it would have been had we given you an alter capability, right? So there's no overhead. It's actually faster if you just do a drop and then a create within that same commit scope. Okay. Did I answer your question, Dominic?
Oh, definitely.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions, comments, thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah. Hi, Deepak, Ajay here.
Ajay, hi.
Yeah. Hi. So, thanks for sharing, this new feature of IMS. Definitely, it is going to help us in future when we are plan for this DDL conversion for our shop. So definitely it will be like, going to show some light, the path which we are going to choose. However, you talk about create, alter, drop. How about select? Will the same way select will also work?
So Ajay, DDL only consists of create, alter, and drop. However,
Mm-hmm.
SQL has select, and yes, we do have select capability, but that's not DDL, that's SQL capability, and we have SQL capability for IMS. And so, yes, you can do selects, yes.
Oh, okay. So the second question apart from this, like, how we are projecting, or IBM are projecting, or all the customers, what we are having, that IMS fetching capability is very fast as compared to any relational like DB2 SQL or any other database. So how we are going to achieve that post this conversion, so that like randomizer will remain the same, or it is going to change the IMS search and database engine as well?
So great, wonderful question. So Ajay is asking for everybody else listening in on this conversation. Ajay is asking a different question. He's not asking a DDL question. He's asking if I grab IMS data using a select, is that going to change, the performance of IMS? That's his question. So a couple of things. When you do selects, you're using SQL, right, to access IMS. So JDBC can be used to access IMS data. And yes, in DB2 as well as in SQL and IMS, depending on how you code your select, you could end up doing an entire scan of the database, and you might shoot yourself in the foot. You can do that in DB2 also, right?
Yep.
So that possibility exists. But we do provide things that can help you avoid that. So, for example, when you code up a select, there's a way to, what we basically do, by the way, Ajay, when you code up a select, we under the covers transform that select into a DLI call. And then we go out and do issue a DLI call and grab the data and then bring it back. So one of the things that we provide is the ability to take a select, and you can see what DLI call is created as a result of that select. So you can see if you're going to be doing a database scan or not. Is that clear, Ajay? The other thing is,
yes.
the other thing I want to mention also very, very important, is that what you're talking about is JDBC access to IMS data. And what is JDBC access? That's issuing SQL calls or selects, if you will, from a Java program. That's what JDBC is. And from Java programs, we actually provide two ways to access IMS data. You can issue JDBC calls, or the other option is you can issue DLI calls coded in Java. And for that, we provide IMS DLI drivers. So you've got both options available to you. In fact, we've got a client right now who's writing Java programs from a distributed platform coming in over TCP/IP into IMS, and they're actually issuing DLI calls using our DLI drivers. And then we've got clients that are issuing JDBC calls using selects, if you will. Okay, did I answer your question, Ajay?
Yes, till certain. So another, like, if you don't mind, I can go ahead one more question. If
Please go ahead.
Yep. So like, in short, you are saying like, the database or the data we are storing in the IMS is nothing going to change, only the way which how we are going to fetch or select, that is going to be change or not change. We are going to provide one more method to our end user to fetch the data from IMS rather than earlier what we are using DLI BMP. So now they can use the SQL or DDL as well. But however, the underlying structure of the data will remain the same. Is my understanding is correct or?
Yeah. You're pretty good, Ajay. You're pretty close. Yes. The database itself does not change. The structure of the database doesn't change. The IMS engine, when it accesses data, is still issuing DLI calls. What we are providing is another interface, if you will, right? We're allowing you to issue JDBC calls or DLI calls in Java using our DLI drivers. And under the covers, we translate them to DLI calls and go grab that data. So if it's an HDAM database that's using a randomizing module, it's still an HDAM database. It's still using randomizing modules. Right.
Okay.
So you still have the performance that IMS offers, but now we are giving you another unique, another interface, if you will, to grab that data. Right? Does that help? Does that answer your question?
Yes, indeed. Yes, that clears out. Thanks, Deepak. Thank you so much.
And on this presentation is my email ID. Please, feel free to reach out to me. I wasn't able to do your demo, but if anybody wants to see a demo, just reach out to me and we can set up another webinar or another WebEx session, and we can do a demo of DDL. Or in the case of Ajay, if you wanted to see a Java program in action, we can show you that too. So feel free to reach out to me. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Thank you so much.
And we've got a question from Umesh.
Yeah.
And we've got another question from Umesh.
Please feel free to add.
Yeah. Umesh, over to
yes. You. Yeah. My question was, I have two questions. One I was written here. You said that we can use IMS Explorer and convert our existing DBDs to the new DDLs.
That's one way, Umesh. One is IMS Explorer, the other is the DDL generation utility, right?
Yeah, but is it mandatory to change the DBDs to have all the field names in it before that?
Well, when you migrate to DDL, you probably want to see those DDL statements. No? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so that means we have to add all the field names in the DBDs, existing DBDs, before we do this conversion.
Okay. So hold on. Umesh is asking a different question. He's asking, typically in DBDs, you do not define every field. You only define searchable fields or key fields. Do I have to define every DBD? The answer is no, you don't have to do that to start using DDL. However, Umesh, if you're going to write Java programs that are going to access fields, then yes, you have to import the COBOL copybook into your DBD. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
Yes. Okay. So it can be used as it is unless we don't want to access the new fields or existing, which are not defined.
If you're not writing Java programs to access those fields, then you don't have to import them. That's right.
Yeah. And so that's part of, like, if you're doing IMS catalog conversion and you wanted to do that, then you would have to do the redefines would all have to be from the copybooks into the catalog before you consume them as a JDB person or whatever.
Yes, if you want to and again, let me say that if you want to consume them through JDBC access, then yes. If you don't want to consume them through JDBC access, then you don't have to.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah, well said. Yeah. Umesh, you said you had a second question.
Yeah, a quick question.
And before you ask that second question, Dominic, we have a limit on. We charge extra for second questions, don't we?
Of course we do, and just to say that we'll have to wrap up after this question because time.
Go ahead with your question.
Sure, quickly I'll ask. I have a meeting too. Okay, so I have not used these tools, but just curious. I know that we have already IMS Explorer today, where you could do these SQL statements. How is it different with ZDDL? Are they both
Well,
similar?
ZDDL is only a way to submit DDL.
Okay.
Right? It's not a way to submit select statements.
And IMS Explorer is only for select statements. That is what you mean?
No, IMS Explorer is both for select statements and DDL.
Okay. Then why do we have this ZDDL? Is it better interface or what's the purpose?
The ZDDL utility doesn't require you to have IMS Connect and ODBM implemented.
Okay.
IMS Explorer for development requires that you implement IMS Connect and ODBM. You don't have to do that with ZDDL. Does that make sense?
Perfect. Yes, it does.
And
Thank
by the
you
way,
so much.
we did have some, by the way, real quickly, we did have people ask us, you know, I'd like to submit selects from ZDDL also. Can you give us that capability? And we said, yeah, okay, we'll look into that at some point down the road. Not right. Okay.
Excellent. So just a quick note about feedback. If you go back onto the website for this conference, there is actually a feedback session is 5T. We've got the QR code there at the bottom right of the screen of the foil, and you've got the direct link just in the middle there of the link for this session for feedback. So I think without further ado, I'll say thank you everybody for the audience participation. It's been great. We've had up to 19 people on the session, so that's fantastic. And thank you very much, Deepak, for this session. Very useful and energizing, I would say.
And Dominic, I just want to add, tomorrow I'm doing the session on the catalog, IMS catalog. So come back for more.
Yeah. And there's a plug for the first one is Heli's session, which is starting at 12 noon tomorrow, that UK time, 8th of Feb. And as you rightly say, we've got Deepak. He's coming back again for more, which is fantastic, for the 2 p.m. till 3 p.m. session on everything you ever want about the IMS catalog, but we're afraid to ask. So we're itching to see you again tomorrow for those sessions. Thanks all.
And the presentation was uploaded, Dominic, so they can take advantage of that.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye now.
Cheers now.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank
all.
you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.